Okay, you can share your screen. Everybody should
Yep.
get a little recording message there. Okay, you can share your screen, Gerald. Welcome, Peace. You are welcome. Glad to have you.
So I was just trying to follow your agenda because you did say the discussion would start at 9:30. So I just want to make sure that we're following the timeline for you, because people may join more toward the 9:30 mark.
Right. So we're just doing introductions as people come in. We usually do that kind of a little kind of virtual networking and introduction. So if anybody else has anything, comments, questions that you're interested in, please raise those. And as other people come in, we'll greet them and bring them in. But we can kind of start doing a little bit of a soft start the discussion now, which is fine as well.
Okay. I might like to hear from Elizabeth, Adiza, and Peace. I'd like to just know a little bit about them and their background if they're willing to share.
Please go ahead.
Why don't we start with Elizabeth, if we could?
Hi everyone, so my name is Elizabeth. I work at the auspicious Agile and Blockchain as a business development associate. So I welcome everyone. I'll also be co-hosting with John, and also kind of just helping him in admitting people and all that. But it's really such a good opportunity to meet all of you and to be able to be part of this session. So thank you so much. I'm from Kenya, actually. I'm based in Kenya. So yeah.
Cool.
We also have Fabrice,
we are truly global here.
Yeah, Fabrice, welcome as well. And go ahead, Adiza.
Adiza, are you there? Could you tell us a bit about yourself, please? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, my name is Adiza Al Hassan.
Oops.
I am the one that is able to handle the websites for auspicious Agile and blockchain. And I'm here to learn as well. I welcome everybody here. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Fabrice,
Adiza.
Are you there? You want to introduce yourself? I think you've joined a few of them actually before.
So,
And Fabrice and Peace. Yeah, so if you want to introduce and let us introduce yourselves. Say hello.
Hello, do you hear me?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Hello, so my name is Fabrice. I live in France, South France, in Toulouse, a very sunny city. I'm registered engineer in aeronautics today, but today I'm on holiday.
Okay.
Nice to be on holiday there. How about Peace?
Yes, please. Good afternoon, everyone. Morning, like maybe. I'm Peace. I'm an educationist. Into EdTech. And I'm also looking forward to handling projects once in a while. So I'm looking forward to going fully into project management. So I'm an enthusiastic learner. I want to learn everything I can when it comes to Agile Framework. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, great.
And
all right,
Gerald, as more people come in, I'll just have them introduce themselves. So we'll just do a soft start here.
Okay, cool. So as we said, tonight's going to be a little more of an open discussion. I'm going to let you guys kind of guide the discussion where you'd like to go. I do want to cover a few things though here. First of all, I think most people are familiar with the framework and where to find it, but one of the things about this is a lot of people don't know how to navigate the framework. So again, they get confused by the tabs across the top. So, and we call it safe for lean enterprises. Everything is hyperlinked in the framework, right? So if you're over the top of something, you can always dig into it. So it's really worth beginning to explore. So up here, you get the general context for the framework. So if I click on safe for lean enterprises, it's going to really tell you, the article is going to help you to understand, well, how does safe fit into a large enterprise? Okay, what is the purpose of the framework? What does it do? So if you dig in through here, it talks about the business benefits, outcomes, etc. So as you're beginning to have conversations with, executives in the company, etc., this is a great link to give them, to get them at least to begin to explore this. If you're exploring the framework for yourself, this is a good place to start. So again, it's just this link up here. You want to click on that, and you just want to read through this to get the context and the understanding of, what drives SAFe and where they're coming from. The other thing that's important to new people is the concept of business agility, right? So this is why the framework is here, right? A lot of people make the mistake of thinking, we're applying Agile in the organization because we want to be an Agile organization. To be honest, at SAI, when we look at the framework, it isn't about making your organization Agile. We don't care if you can walk around and go, we're an Agile enterprise. What we care about is getting you better business outcomes. So the whole term and the point of this is to create a business that is more capable of responding to a changing marketplace. And so the common term around that is business agility. So if you've explored this part of it, the next part to really explore for you is this concept of business agility. So again, clicking onto this article will help you understand, well, what is business agility? What drives it for an organization? What does that look like in an organization? So you can see the historical view of this as to what's driving what business agility is. You'll see the business agility value stream. The business agility value stream being, this is just a different way of thinking how an organization operates. So if you think of waterfall projects, silos, hierarchies, they are the more traditional views of how organizations operate. The business agility value stream here is really intended to give the organization a structure for operating differently, for delivering value to their customers. So you want to go looking through that. And of course, there's the other pieces here of how do we get to that point where hierarchies dominate, silos dominate. And so we want to come down here. And here's where you begin to understand that SAFe itself is a framework that provides guidance on how to change the organization from that traditional, structures we see today to that business agility value stream. All right. So I like to say the business agility value stream provides the behavior, or the representation of behavior. The framework provides the guidance, and the core competencies, or the 7 core competencies provide the knowledge you need to have to get to those things. And we'll look at those here in a second. So again, as you're exploring,
jump in, we have a few more joiners if we want to introduce them. We have Pradeep,
okay, sure.
Just joined, and we have Jamin, and also I believe we had one more. So Pradeep, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm from India. I've been working for the past 8 years, and for the last 2 years, I've been working as Scrum Master. Recently, as I said, my organization has transformed to Scaled Agile. So I would like to get more insights on my role as a Scrum Master as part of my team. Yeah.
Great. And Chandru, did you already get a chance to introduce yourself? You're on mute, Chandru. You there? Okay, and Bernard, I see has joined, no audio yet. Okay, well, Chandru, if you're able to unmute, please do so and introduce yourself. If not, we'll do that a little bit later. And then also we got people from, of course, throughout Singapore, Southeast Asia, as well as South Asia, Africa, developing markets. So Gerald, if we're able to give maybe a little focus as to SAFe being applied, if we're able to give a little focus to SAFe application sorry, I'm going to mute you. If you're able to give a little focus to safe application, you know, kind of like US developed markets versus, you know, developing markets, what, you know, is there, you know, some guidance or pointers that people should be keeping in mind as we look at the, you know, obviously we have more developed markets like Australia, US, and then we have markets like, you know, South Asia, Southeast Asia, where a lot of markets are not as far along in terms of enterprises. Any guidance as far as that goes right now also?
Yeah, I mean, so I think we can talk about as we go. What I was going to get back to here was the fact that, you know, for those people who are new to the framework, because I do sense quite a few people here are fairly new to the framework. So again, that guidance that I'm giving you here, you know, for learning and studying the framework, start with lean enterprises, you know, come down to business agility, and then move on to operational value streams. Right. So move on, you know, read the articles on operational value streams. And then what you want to do is begin to make your way around each of the articles on the core competencies. Right. So before, because a lot of people, what they do is they start digging into the framework and the structure, and that can be a bit overwhelming at first. So you really need to build up with a bit of context. So again, the context of the framework, what business agility is, a very critical piece of SAFe, or, you know, to get business agility is operational value streams. The reason operational value stream sits up here in the blue bar is because unless you're actually dealing with your operational value streams, you're not going to get business agility. That's why it sits there. So if you notice, when I click on the essential configuration, it's gone. You know, if I click on large solution, it's also not there, because I'm not actually talking about operational value streams. I'm not connecting with those. And so I'm not connecting with the portfolio. So it really disappears with each of those. So that's why at portfolio level and at full SAFe, you see the blue bar with the operational value streams. So people don't get the structure of the framework and why it's structured like this. This is partly why, right? That's the messaging. Competencies are important. Probably start around leadership and then work your way around the different competencies. So this is going to help you lay that foundation, that understanding of what the framework is going to be about. I think once you get through that, then starting making your way through the team and having a discussion about it. So I think, you know, given that I wanted to ask Pradeep, like, you're new to this, right? So what would you say are some of the challenges you're finding for you that you would be curious to know more about?
The first thing would be the mindset of my team. Since a few guys are from Waterfall, since we are in a period of transition, we find it hard in changing the mindset of the team. They are not much willing to, you know, adapt the new agile principles, and largely speaking with respect to SAFe.
Can you give me some insight as to, you know, how did they adopt SAFe? Did they go through putting together an agile release train? Did they follow the, you know, the implementation roadmap here, you know, to enable the education? Did they do all those things?
Right now, they are at essential construct. You know, there are, like, we have 4 teams on our train.
Only 4 teams on the, so you got 4 teams on the agile release train, yeah?
Yes. So we have a mix of people, like, as I said, few from Waterfall, and few are new to Scaled Agile. Few guys have worked as part of Scrum. So we have a mix of people. Yeah.
Okay. And did all the teams go through SAFe for Teams training prior to a launch?
No, not all. Few of them have gone through. Few are yet to get trained.
Okay. And what about back here? Did they train the product owners and the product managers? Was leading SAFe done as part of the launch process? Do you know?
No, Cadden, I'm not sure actually.
Okay. And even if I go all the way back up here, do you remember them running a value stream workshop to figure out what the value is that they're going to work for?
No.
Okay, good. All right, good. So these are the things, because when you tell me that, you know, for others on the phone, when you kind of talk to me as a consultant, you say, you know, we're struggling with the mindset, et cetera. The first thing I go to is, did you go through the education process? Did you take the steps in a particular order that builds on the capability and knowledge before we actually go? What most of the time you find when people are launching agile release trains is they just go ahead and start right here. They put together a bunch of teams, they fill some roles, et cetera, and then they just launch the train, right? And sometimes along the way, they just get the train launched, but they don't even do some of the training. So I'm going to just switch to red and make it more visible. They don't even do the training that's necessary, like this leading safe course to get that lower level management, get those people who are going to be working around there. That gets left off completely, right? This is one of the big ones, you know, the safe for teams. This is a really essential training course to actually execute prior to launching, you know, just a couple of days prior to launching the train. And all the teams should go through this. You know, and the reason being is because it brings them together with the understanding of what they're going to be doing. They've been getting some of that along the way, but if you don't take them through Safe for Teams, they're just going to come into PI planning and they're going to be wondering what they're doing. You know, and then, you know, I'm assuming you might have a release train engineer, you might not. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole range of things that begin to go wrong when people tend to start their transformation at this point. So I don't know which organization you work for, Pradeep. I won't ask. Sure. But it's one of those things that, you know, when people get into this is a common problem, right? When people skip this area, you know, especially training the leadership, you know, maybe you have SPCs on board, maybe you don't. I don't know. Depending on the context you came from, how did you get to this point? And this value stream, organizing around value. So finding the value streams that you're going to organize for. A lot of people don't do that because they think SAFE is an IT framework, right? It's just for doing bigger, better projects. Sandeep, do you guys still work in projects? Sorry, Pradeep. I said Sandeep. Yeah. So Pradeep, do you still work in projects?
Yeah. Actually, we work on developing dashboards, Power BI dashboards, where we present these dashboards to the management to have a deeper insights. Yeah, we do work on projects. Yeah.
So these are the sorts of things that, you know, are so common. And I hear this, you know, John hears this all the time too. You know, we hear this all the time where we see organizations are struggling and they're doing these things, or people are new. And then you go and ask these questions and you'll find that, yeah, they didn't do these things, right? So organizations miss the concept that SAFE is about organizing around value with dedicated sets of teams. Projects go away. Right? There shouldn't be a project anymore. It's what Scrum or Agile always intended, was a dedicated set of teams working for the business and delivering for the customer. SAFE is just doing this on a more organized scale way of doing this, right? By organizing the teams around an Agile release train, product management, architecture, everybody. We're running lean at the portfolio level. So there's a whole group of things that just get missed if people don't.
Fucking hell! Wow.
Okay.
That was strange. Okay, not sure what that was.
And when they bang this in the club, baby, you got to get up. Thug niggas, drug dealers, yeah, they giving it up. Low.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for that, John.
All right, give me a minute. I'm gonna take that connection off. Go ahead.
Okay, so as I was showing before, when I go back to the framework here, you know, that's why this education and knowledge is really important, because we're looking to grow people's knowledge as we go through. So the framework as it stands is a bit overwhelming. And that's why we go through the roadmap to get people along a particular education path so that the implementation, you know, follows a more structured approach to build the knowledge before actually stepping off. So, things that you can think about in your organization, Pradeep, and maybe others will be like, well, what did we miss? What did they not do? And what does that mean for the future? Because if you now continue on, it's probably only going to get harder. People are going to only get more frustrated. They're probably, if the train's been running for a while, they're probably already experiencing challenges. And what they do tend to do is they start falling back to older ways of doing stuff. And then eventually, you end up with either this real mix and match approach, or it just dies completely. And you end up back doing, whatever approach you had before. So those are kind of interesting. What other things do people, I want to see what other things where people might have questions on particular challenges that they'd like to ask about.
Okay, and we did have another joiner here. I think we had Bernard join, and we also had, is there another joiner here? Okay, so great. If anybody else wants to introduce themselves, please feel free to do that, and then also ask questions.
So if people can chime in as they want, but again, so the general structure of this, usually when I begin to have conversations around the framework, to begin to help people understand it, I start with the overview, and then I'll make my way across the configurations and help people understand. A lot of people get confused about this essential configuration. It's like, well, why do we do this? It's because a lot of the time, you're not really involved with a portfolio. You're not connected to strategy. And so what happens is you still need to organize around value. It still means that you are going to have to do a value stream identification workshop. You're still changing, right? But it just means that you're not really putting in, the portfolio layer. You're still creating all the capability for self-organized teams of teams to work, but it's not going to be connected to strategy, which has an effect as time goes by, because as you're working on initiatives, where do those initiatives come from? How do you know they're really valid initiatives, right? So again, you typically end up going into this world, you'll end up with a backlog of features that come from various projects or other things that are going on, but you have no idea if this is really benefiting the organization. So it's important to be able to circle back that. Large solutions, if you're working in kind of those semi-engineering companies, it's kind of the same as Essential Safe, but for more complex environments. Right. And so, again, it's organized around value. It's just that I've got 1,000 people here. I'm going to have multiple agile release trains. Some people are working on hardware. Some people are on firmware, and there's a mix of things going on here, but it's doing the same thing. Your backlog is full of features or broader kinds of, not quite initiatives, but capabilities, we call them. Right. And then we're breaking those into features and implementing. And of course, you get the portfolio level where you do finally start connecting strategy. Most companies run Portfolio Safe, and you'll notice Portfolio Safe and Essential Safe work together. You see the full configuration just simply says, I'm a really complex organization. I go over to Boeing, right? I'm over in Boeing, and I do have complex cyber physical development going on for aircraft. And so I do implement strategy. I implement large solutions to build and put together aircraft. And so that means essential, but I also have back office stuff going on. And so I might just be at a back office, just implementing portfolio with essential. So the organization's complex and has a mix of the different configuration. So again, being able to explain and help people understand what the configurations mean becomes an important skill for an SPC. And it's often missed because the diagram itself, the framework itself, the picture here doesn't really allude to that, right? So it's not really structured for that. It takes you to dig in and get to understand this stuff. Did I hear a question that was coming up from somebody there?
We had BT Yap just joined. If you want to introduce yourself. We also had JL just join. I'm hoping that's not the person who was just making that noise in the background. Please introduce yourselves.
It looks like BT is still getting connected to audio there. Oh, here he is. Oh, wait, still going.
BT, do you want to introduce yourself? No, still not connected to audio. Okay. And JL, if you are there, if you want to introduce yourself to the group. Okay, well, one thing while we're waiting for folks to speak and respond here, a lot of people may not know what the big picture is, Gerald. I mean, we take for granted we have a lot of new people. Can you kind of just explain what the big picture is and what parts there are to it? Because it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about the big picture here, it literally is. You look at it, it's the big picture, right? So it's just kind of the fond way we refer to it, because it's literally just a big diagram of what SAFe is. So the main excuse me, the main constructs in the big picture is, as I said from the top, you start with lean enterprises at the top to give you context, business agility, and the configurations. Each of these tabs represents as a configuration. We start with an overview, right? So it tells you about the different competencies, and then you've got each configuration. So the tab just represents the configurations. You got the main constructs here. So you have the essential level. This is the engine. This is where the teams are. This is where the teams are working together, coordinated in an agile release train. Okay, this is where the value is being created and delivered. All right. If you're working in a complex environment, at Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Honeywell, GE, a whole range of different companies there, you might have large solutions. So this just means I've got a lot of people, suppliers, and very complex things that I'm building. And so the large solution is just another, that just adds more guidance on how do you implement SAFe in a very large, complex environment where you've got thousands of people, suppliers, hardware, firmware, and your testing environments are very different. You're producing physical things like satellites, aircraft, ships, missile systems, radars. All right, it's all of those kinds of things. And of course, sitting above all that, we have the layer of the portfolio. This is where we connect strategy to execution. Execution is useless if strategy is not done properly. You know, there's just a whole series, a whole world of, failures where we've worked on initiatives that were just had no place by the time they were implemented. So this is really where we try to lean out the portfolio and provide, a more efficient, stronger portfolio that has, that produces epics or initiatives that are actually valuable things for everyone below to be working on. So we really do want to implement all of these. The roles sit down over here, over the side for each level. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that SAFe is hierarchical. It's not, it's collaborative. So product owners don't report to product management, right? Not in an implementation of SAFe. They collaborate with them, but they don't report to them. There's probably an org chart somewhere where people do report to other people, but it's not here, right? So SAFe is not a hierarchical implementation. Although the model, you can't see it here, is that as a portfolio, I may have, one or more implementations of a large solution, or just one or more implementations of an essential SAFe. So there is kind of a decomposed structure to that, but it's not a hierarchical reporting relationship. Down the side, very important here, you have the competencies. The 7 core competencies are what we felt needed to be expressed for each area to help people understand, well, what is it I need to master in the framework in order to begin moving towards business agility? So as an example here, if I go into leadership as a core competency, this is very important to understand, well, what are the characteristics that I need to build into my leadership that help me move here? So a mindset. So Pradeep, you talked about a mindset here. This is the mindset for leadership, but it's true of everybody, not just those, So we want leadership to understand that the team that works at the bottom has to have a lean and agile mindset as much as anybody else. How are you going to be implementing if your teams are executing, but their mindset is still, in waterfall? So again, this is important for leadership to begin to take on board the characteristics that are represented here in this competency, so they can begin to understand the kind of changes, how to lead that change, and how to lead by example. So what characteristics that they should show, or they should be demonstrating that they want people to follow. Close a few things here. I've got a few things open. So again, The other important part of the framework here is the implementation roadmap. You can see all the core values here. So we have the bottom rocker down here, which says these are fundamental things that the framework sits upon. We sit upon core values. We have the 4 core values. You know, if I go in here, you look at them, there's transparency, alignment, quality, and program execution. Now this will change. This is going to change at some point in version 6. But right now it's still this. So this simply says that these are the core things we believe in, right? So again, this transition to safe for leadership and for teams really begins, as I said, this is where they begin to get this knowledge. Change agents go through this education. Leadership needs to go through this education. Critical in that education are the core values. If I go back here, the lean and agile mindset, and also the safe principles which guide us on execution of the framework. On this side, we have the roadmap, and I talked about that here a little bit. Following the roadmap is going to give you a much greater chance of success when you're implementing this framework. And more often than not, we see organizations that are on their 3rd transformation or their 3rd attempt at SAFE. And when you go look at why, most of the time it's because they don't follow the roadmap, right? They don't take vital steps that they should take in order to make the right decisions at the right time. SPCs are critical. So, Pradeep, how many SPCs at your organization?
We have 3 guys.
3. And so your trainers, how many people?
We have 5 teams on our train, and on my team, we have 5 developers, a product owner, and myself.
Okay, good. So having a couple of SPCs on board is critical, but you know, the word of warning here is sending someone to an SPC course and then having them come back and tell them to implement an agile release train is not going to work out too well for you, right? Yeah. Simply because they've never done it before. They're not experienced. The framework is great at guidance, but there's real world experience and knowledge that you need to have, right? That comes with time and practice, right? And so, you know, I see management all the time just send people off to training courses, come back and hand them a problem to solve, and bingo, they should be experts, right? That's just not the case. So again, as we're going through this, as you're making your way through the roadmap, understand here that when you trained your Lean Agile train agents, you've trained your SPCs, they've got knowledge, but they don't have understanding. And so you need to bring in people who have done this before, you know, whether it's a partner or one of the other companies, or whether you're hiring people that have the right experience. You need people helping to lead this that have done this before, and they're aware of the, you know, the pitfalls and the traps.
Okay.
So coming back here, we've gone across here. Over here, you have what we call the spanning palette. The spanning palette, you'll notice changes as I change through each configuration, simply because items on the spanning palette are really relevant, you know, across the framework. So a vision is certainly relevant at a portfolio level, but if I'm here, it's also relevant here, right? So I might just have a product vision here, but up here at the portfolio level, I've got a product vision, but I've also probably got a strategic vision, which is usually embodied here in the portfolio vision. So each spanning palette, the roadmaps, you'll have roadmaps at different levels. If I'm in a really complex environment, you know, and I'm building the F-35, I've got a strategic roadmap for what that aircraft should look like. I've got, you know, a roadmap here to run the large solution because the F-35 is made up of very complex pieces, most of them assembled by suppliers. So I need a roadmap of how I'm putting those big pieces together at some point. And then, of course, you have the smaller pieces down here, you know, so once I'm in, I'd say the weapon systems, I have smaller roadmaps for the different parts of the weapon systems.
And Gerald, I think, again, for the beginners, can you maybe explain what an SPC is? I'm not sure everybody knows.
So the SPC is a SAFE program consultant. Again, explore this framework. Go click on these articles. They're very detailed, right? So this is the SAFE program consultant is intended to be a certification that gives you the foundational knowledge of the framework, but also the knowledge on what to do to implement the framework. So it's typically a 4-day course or a 5-day course, depending on who's teaching it. and you go through 2 days of knowledge around the framework, because we don't assume that you come with any. And so you get the fundamentals of the framework, the fundamentals of the lean agile mindset. You get to understand the different parts of the framework in terms of the portfolio, what leadership needs to do. There's a whole lot of stuff that you learn. But then in the second half of the course, we basically teach you the roadmap and how to implement. We talk about each stage of the roadmap here and the kinds of things you're going to be doing. The instructor that's teaching you should be able to lay out for you, some of the challenges that they've had in teaching this, in implementing this. And so, you should be able to get some of their experience. Pradeep, are you an SPC?
No, I'm a Scrum Master.
That's Scrum Master. And have you done the Safe Scrum Master course?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have all of these. So again, the SPCs sit inside the organization to guide implementation. So they might be part of your PMO, your Agile PMO. They might be part of a Lean Agile Center of Excellence. It really just depends on the organization and how they're going about doing the transformation. But depending on the organization, you start with a few SPCs, and over time, you might build up a few more. But you don't want thousands of SPCs either, right? The goal is not to create thousands of people who are SPCs. The goal is to create a good central group of individuals that work for a Lean Agile Center of Excellence or an Agile PMO that enable Agile release trains to become self-sufficient. Right. So again, if you look on most Agile release trains, you typically don't find SPCs executing day-to-day work. Some of them are. Some people usually train their release train engineer as an SPC as well. So sometimes you will find some people have that, but that's not what the certification is for, right? The certification is there to help them grow and make Agile release trains successful, help them make them self-sufficient so they know how to solve their own problems. All right, so a couple of other things that when you're looking at the framework here, useful things for you to be looking at and coming back to on a regular basis. A lot of people miss this thing called the advanced topics, right? So both the framework team and the advisors and the community contribute to advanced topics. I'll just go to this in a separate tab. And if you go look at the advanced topics, they're papers or presentations or things that are contributed that the framework team feels are valuable and add value to the knowledge, but they're not necessarily a core part or should be a core part of the body of the framework itself. So for example, you might want to be looking up more about contracts. And so where was Agile contracts? If I want to understand when I'm dealing with suppliers, or dealing with, systems integrators. Well, what do I do with my Agile contract, given most contracts are based around projects? Well, what's going to happen now? Because I'm not doing projects anymore. So how do I pull in, a company like Infosys, for example, to be on my teams and who are going to be building software for me? How am I going to contract them? So again, you're starting to look at some of these articles, additional information, often built based on people's knowledge and experience. So you can see these are the ones that we've done through SPCTs and other people. Down here, you'll get the community contributions. So we often evaluate advanced topics from the community. And those that get through, will often make it. So people, what about HR? And safe. What happens here when I'm implementing, right? Some of these articles will help you understand that. High assurance systems, designing for testability. Some of these articles are very deep and technical, others are more broad. So again, as you're growing your knowledge of SAFe, don't forget to go and look through some of these things. They can be informative to you. Next to that, so if you're looking at the framework, you have access to advanced topics here at the bottom, and you can click on View All Advanced Topics. You can also get to it if you come back to the top of the framework here. Okay. When we are bringing out new things in the framework, whether it's new articles or updates to articles, you will see them here in what's new in SAFe. A lot of the times you might actually see a bit of an introduction to them here in a blog post. So a blog post we produce is just a short introduction to a domain or a domain or topic. that we're going to be doing. And then when it's been there for a while, we might shift it over to what's new and safe. We put it here to keep it fresh in the minds of people. So for example, here you will see that we announced not too long ago, new guidance around, artificial intelligence in safe. We announced just recently new guidance around big data and data ops in safe. And you'll see those same articles sitting over here. Difference being is when I click on this, it will take me to the same place, right? So again, it's a bit repetitive, but you can dig down and then you can come down into the article itself as you want to dig into these. And it takes you out of the framework, which I don't like. So the blog posts are often just quick, short introductions to things that usually connect to a framework article or to an advanced article. So you might see that sort of stuff. But again, you can, if you click on the view more, it will simply take you to the category. And here you can just see all the different topics that we're going to. So it's very clickable, very easy to find your way around. So it's important for you to be able to explore some of these things too. Down here, if you're looking for partners, so if you're implementing, you're looking for partners. If you're looking at the framework, you can get posters and graphics. So, you can down them, they're full-size image files that you can then send off to be printed. So if you want to put them up around the walls, there's lots of stuff. You can find the training and course calendars. If you wanted to use the graphics, for example, there's actually a permissions form you can submit. You can let us know which graphics from the framework you would like to use for an article or something you're doing, and our legal team will get back to you to provide you permission or not. And overall usages. So there's a whole range of different things. And of course, some of the recent posts get repeated here. Do most people know about the community stuff? Does anybody actually explore what's up on the community?
No.
Really valuable. A great place for you guys to learn and gain knowledge. So, what happened there? Let me just go. Oh. So if you have a safe certification, you are part of the community. You already have a community profile. Yeah. And a lot of people have been missing what's been going on up here, myself included. Sometimes I have my head down. I get the fortunate inside information when stuff comes out, but a lot of people in the community have their head down doing working, and they miss the stuff we release on the community. I'm just going to log in here and show you some of them.
Cadden, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I have a community account. I was thinking this community was a different tab, but I have a community account. I have my account.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's perfect. But I want to make sure that, do you know what's up there? How often do you go look at your community account?
Yeah. Actually, I do log into my account and see if there are any new updates. And I also see if there are anything relevant. I've come across few facilitation documents where they have given a clear roadmap on how can I handle my team with respect to facilitating events. Yeah, I've been going.
So for a lot of people here, even experienced people, we release new stuff and people need to realize that it's up here. So for example, just recently, the three things we've been really putting up here and focusing on is LPM, organized around value, and value stream mapping. Right. So there are, and these are a lot more complex than people think. So if you want to understand what does it mean in my organization to begin to implement SAFE at the portfolio level, this is a great set of things to go through. It's very interactive. You will go through articles, you'll interact with the system. It'll give you quizzes and questions, and you can answer those. You can take notes as you go. Right. So it's very important to people understand that, we give you a process for implementing, LPM. So again, if I'm over here in the framework and I've been doing essential safe, and now I'm starting to think about, well, how do I do the portfolio? So if I'm on the roadmap and I've been implementing essential safe, I've got it up and running, and now I'm down here, I want to go to the portfolio. this Adopt LPM is a great knowledge resource for you to begin. If you go into each one of these, if I just go into a line, you begin to see what's available to you. And this is available to you as a community member, right? There's no extra cost. This is all free. It's just up there and available to you once you're in as a community member. There's sets of videos, you know, to give you more knowledge, right? There's a roadmap for this. There's checklists. So there's a range of tools and things that you can go into to begin doing. Do you need control of my screen, John? Is that you?
No, that is not me. Decline that. Sounds like we got somebody trying to disrupt the session.
Yeah, so I'll just ignore them for the moment. So again, you know, once you're in here, you can go through here. The practice guide is the interesting one that you want to go into. Right, so the practice guide just gets you in here, and you can see that it actually takes you into a structured education lesson that will walk you through. And there are videos to watch, you know, testimonials to listen to, you know, things for you to read, notes you can take, etc. So these can be really valuable to you as a you know, an SPC early on your journey, or if you're just in an organization and you've been implementing. So there's certainly the information.
Gerald, I removed that person. Go ahead and decline, and they should be gone.
Okay. Thanks, John. So again, you know, you've got this. You'll see the same thing for organize around value. This is, again, organizing around value is one of the areas where most people just don't get it with SAFe, right? They come in and they start running projects. Projects are not organizing around value, right? Projects organize around scope. Right, they're temporal things. Organizing around value is long-lived. So again, you get, you know, the reason why people struggle is because they often struggle to generate the buy-in. They struggle to describe what it is and to go ahead and work with executives to get them to buy into organizing around value. Because when you're organizing around value, you're teaching the organization to operate and implement in a different way. And that's why it's such a critical piece of the framework. That's why it's up there at the top of the framework. For the operational value streams, that's why development value streams are so critical. So again, this is really worth your while exploring. There's a lot of good information in here. So if I go into generate the buy-in, for example, again, you should see a practice guide in here. Is it in this one? They haven't done it yet. Maybe it's not in this one. So this is mostly videos, et cetera, et cetera. So the practice guide is coming around this. I thought I saw it here a second ago, but it may not be done. Oh, there it is down here. So there are some practice guides as well. So each of these eventually will have some practice guides, which is the deeper way we educate you. So again, the SPC is the beginning of your journey. It goes deeper, but the community is where you get, you know, so much more of your knowledge. Don't forget, there's also value stream mapping. That's a new topic area for us. That is not value stream identification. Right, so you might be working with your organization to actually map out, you know, operational value streams and to determine determine how efficient they are. So again, this can help you understand how to do that. You've got lots of tools and toolkits available to you as an SPC. These are available to you. If you're not an SPC, they will not be available to you. Right. And so you've got team and arts events. So again, you can come in here. Some of these will be available to you as a regular community member. Some are just for SPCs. You'll see the difference. Measure and grow. So if you're wanting to run the assessments, they're here. Right. So you can, again, if you're launching a train for the first time, do a baseline of your train. Get a baseline every PI. Go back and run the assessment again, so you can see how's my teams, how's my organization doing on their journey to business agility. And so that becomes an important part too. What's important here too is the community. So if you haven't been in here, visit your community forum. When you're struggling with information or knowledge, it's really useful for you to come into one of the forums and post some questions. So if I'm, let's come down to the Safe Program Consultants Forum. If I come in here to this forum, if I'm implementing or I've got questions or I'm not sure about something, you can come in here and type your question and the community will respond. Lots of people respond with, hey, this was my experience, or here's a good article you could look at. There's lots of good information out there. The community here is very powerful. A lot of people get their SPCs and they spend all their time trying to nut through the problems themselves. That's great, but also use the community. You know, it's powerful. People have done things that you're struggling with. See if they can help you. Okay, so that's kind of a bit of a tour of these things. Again, use the community. It's powerful. You can get to it from here in the framework. You can learn about it. You can log in. You also can save that link and get to it, you know, just generally if you want. Training, obviously, for other training, if you're following the roadmap. One of the questions that people have, because I feel like I've kind of gone over this and things like that, but I want to see if it is sparking more knowledge for people.
I have a question. I'm sorry once again.
Go ahead. The questions are good.
Yeah. So when you said about the assessment, is it the same as measure and grow, which we see on the blue tab?
It is. It is. So when you're looking into the assessment, it is the business agility assessment. So here you can download the toolkit. One of the SPCs in your organization can download the toolkit. There's a measure and grow toolkit. It's called something else now, I think, but that's the toolkit. You can also work with our partners, Agility Health and Comparative Agility. They provide a cloud service for doing your assessments. So you're going to work with them. You're going to create an agreement with them because the data is held outside of your organization. So you want to check to make sure it's secure, et cetera, right? And meet your organization's security. So otherwise, you're just using the spreadsheets that we provide. And you're working with those. But yeah, it's certainly measure and grow. So you do the assessment, you look at areas where you're weak, and then you can explore the different grows to try and improve those.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Does anybody else have another question? Don't be afraid. I love questions. I like answering questions. No question's too tough. If you give me a tough question, I'll just give it to John.
Gerald Thomas here. I have here in Germany, I've come across the concept called flight levels, authored by prominently Klaus Leopold. I'm not sure, did you guys come across that yet? Because some people say it maps to the 3 levels of SAFe. You have an opinion about that?
No, the only time I've heard of flight levels is when I used to be in air traffic control. And after that,
no, it's a different concept. Yeah.
Thomas, I heard of that. I think some folks I've worked with in Agile in Thailand have been using that. I don't know much about it, but I think it's kind of a scaling approach as well. I don't know a lot of details on it though.
Yeah, no, I know what it is. It is an extremely light touch approach to put a coordination level on 3 levels in the organization. Basically a Deming cycle. Check whatever, do check adapt, right? They have 5 activities there that you're supposed to do on a team level. On a medium scale, it's sort of operational level, and on a strategic level, they actually call it also portfolio. And basically saying, if you want to start becoming more agile in an organization without going through a reorganization, let's say it's extremely light touch, you should at least aim to do put this meta level on top that you are constantly checking your feedbacks, basically on all 3 levels. So are all the teams doing this? Are between the teams, are they coordinating about what's important, and are they basically working on a strategy level to ensure that the organization is working on the direction of the strategy? It is so generic that I think they're saying themselves that on the team level, if an agile team is set up correctly, they're doing this already, which they should, right? They're saying on a strategic level, this coordination should be there, but it depends on the organization. And they're saying actually the middle flight level, the team coordination part, is usually what they're finding is most in need in an organization, that the teams are not communicating basically enough, right? And for me, that maps to basically teams, release trains, and portfolio level and safe. People have suggested that in discussions. It seems to be a bit involved here in Germany. But it maps the same concepts that I see in safe. Yeah.
So I think an interesting, comment around that is that more often as people are exploring safe or implementing safe, they're like, well, what about this other approach out here? How do I map this? Like, people want to start trying to map other stuff. And, what we'll tell you is we're not against something like that. I mean, if you feel like there's something offered by another approach or another framework and you want to try it, try some experiments and incorporate that in. But I think it's important you have to understand at the very base level how safe gets going, the concept of organizing around value and launching release trains against that. You have to get that right. If you have to look at then the flight level thing and ask, well, is this changing that concept? And if so, how would I do that? The job of a good SPC in SAFE is to be open-minded and say, hey, if you want to do this, that's great, but here are the pros and cons. Let me help you make the right decision about adding something into the framework or taking something out of the framework. Because I see a lot of organizations, I want a bit of that framework over there, and I want a bit of this one over here, and a bit of that one over there, and they start, Frankensteining their transformation. And the challenge with that is that sometimes these things don't work well together. And so they really do have to think about that.
Yeah.
Anush, did you have a comment or a question? I thought I heard something there. So
Gerald, I had mentioned earlier about kind of the differences. So we have, like we said, Elizabeth's over there in Kenya. I know you did something, I believe, Safe does stuff in South Africa versus a market like Australia, Singapore, implementations, across kind of developing versus developed markets. Any insights there?
I'm sorry, John. My 1-year-old just came in the room and distracted me.
No problem.
I'm sorry. So I think, we see SAFE is matured in many markets, right? So, is maturing in like across Europe and the US, we see a great deal of maturity. We're still seeing growth in Asia and Africa and the Middle East. And so there's more, and in Latin America too, there's much more growth in these areas. And then Asia is one of our faster growing areas now. And so, we have expertise in all of these places, but our mature markets are certainly Europe and the US. But I think culturally, there's a lot of challenges in some of these other markets because there's still not enough knowledgeable SPCs to be out implementing in some of the newer markets. And that's where it becomes a challenge to us, where we look for partners all the time. If you know our business model, we primarily work through partners who we want to go out there and implement the framework, but getting them to a point where they have knowledgeable SPCs is the challenge for us. And so we do find we have to support a lot of partners, but it's still growing. I think Africa, we do have a couple of people down there who are SPCTs, who have been working in that area and in the Middle East. But I don't have a great deal of insight to numbers if you're looking for more direct numbers.
All right, is that the hacker again, or is that somebody asking a question?
No, I think Tanush just has herself needs to just
all right, we got apparently Zoom bombing and Zoom hacking is becoming a big thing. So I think we got ourselves a hacker today. So everybody just be aware. If you see it, let me know so we can get them out quick. Okay. All right. So not much you said right now, kind of still developing in those markets, but there is support and activity happening.
Yeah, so again, something that people need to be aware of too, if you haven't gone and looked at it, but again, a really great place to go and look and see what's out there is go to the customer stories, right? And look for areas that are in your marketplace or your geographical region. So if you come down into customer stories, you can go to regions. And so if I click on Africa, what I see is Standard Bank. Standard Bank was a major organization that did this back, I think around 2017, they began their journey, 2016, 2017. And they're still doing it. They're diversified a little bit. For the last few years, they've turned up at our summit, Safe Summit, you know, and they present on what they're doing. So you can see that we have one reference regionally for Africa. Right, so you can tell that we've got a lot of work to do to expand across Africa. You know, if I deselect that and I take a look across, you know, Asia, you know, you can see that we've got a few case studies here. This is not representative of our own customs. We have lots of people trying this. You know, I talk with our China. You know, here I work with our what's the word for, I'm struggling to find the word, you know, not account manager, but our country manager for China, country manager for Japan. And we have a group country manager for ASEAN, which is everything else, including South Korea. And there's just tons of companies that are starting to look at this, but they're early on their journeys, right? Even in Singapore, there's still more companies starting to look at this, but it's just, culturally, things are a bit slow here, but Japan is moving ahead very quickly. You know, we're seeing very large companies like NTT Data, you know, come into this. Fujitsu are coming into this. They've all, like, you know, NTT Data is now a global transformation partner for us, you know, because they have that global reach. They have, you know, they've got hundreds of people trained at this point, and they're working internally, developing, and they're starting to work on transformations in Japan. And that started back in 2019.
Nice. Good. Okay. Other people have questions, areas you want to discuss? Anybody not understand something Gerald talked about? I know we got a lot of different topics there that may be a little confusing. So feel free to ask if you don't understand, don't know the big picture, an SPC, you know, a release train. Gerald's here to answer. I'll try to help support as well.
Yeah, Gerald, I have a question. When you have shown us the big picture, at the bottom, you have shown us what's new, right? Where we get the latest updates at the bottom. Yeah. Is there a place where I can find new items at the community level? When we get into the community?
No, not so much at the community. On the community portal is more about, we use the community portal more as a journey for your growth, whereas what's on the framework is more relevant. You know, it's kind of the same, but what's on the framework is more relevant to the change in the framework or the advanced topics. So if it's a change to the framework itself, you know, in the articles of the framework, or a change to the big picture, then you'll see it here in what's new and safe, because we're changing the underlying body of knowledge. The advanced topics are also here because they're this, you know, as I said, they're kind of not part of the framework, but they're supportive or additional things for growth. So there's a knowledge component here, but as you're looking here, the knowledge component here is more about taking you on an education path. What are the things that I can provide you that can grow your role? So you'll see in the coming months, you know, this year, you'll see more stuff for release train engineers coming out. You'll see more stuff around organizing a value. We're developing more and more content, you know, as we realize that it's not good enough for us to certify you as a release train engineer. We need to provide you a constant stream of knowledge and education to enable you to improve yourself. You'll see it for Scrum Masters as well and teams, right? There's a whole range of knowledge the guys in Boulder, Colorado are working on. There's just not enough of them to get it done that fast.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, if you like, Gerald, I have a real project example to share. Pretty much a little bit more on the side how not to do it, but it illustrates pretty much what Safe Essential is about. If you like, it'll take 10 minutes probably. Can you show the big picture Essential, please? This is basically I was was assigned to a project in a large German bank. The project was been running for 9 months, and they basically said they're doing safe. So I went in there, looked at it, and went like, wait a minute. So the context is a data transformation application that for Scrum teams running in parallel, basically doing attributes. So the focus of the organization was to get the transformations done, the implementation, but they pretty much hadn't thought about anything else. So they had an automation framework, templates in to make the data attribute transformation faster, but basically had set up the teams to do work in parallel without any coordination. You do these set up attributes, you do these set up attributes, you do these set up attributes, get them done as quickly as possible. So they were doing 2-week sprints, yes, safe standard. They were doing what they called PIs, which were a little bit more aligned to their internal organizational release cycle. So every 2 months, they were doing a PI, but they weren't doing PI planning. Now, when wait a minute, what's going on here, right? And because ultimately they said, hey, mid of this year, we want to go live. Okay, have you thought about performance? Have you thought about operational requirements? Have you thought about data consistency, reporting, and blah, blah? The answer was no. So what they were not doing in their pursuit of let's do attributes was the stuff on the left top. Basically, they didn't have a system engineer in, they didn't have an architect in, they didn't have an architectural roadmap that would define, hey, how does the operational system that's doing attributes in a couple of months, in my case, that was in a further 9 months, going to look like, right? So I basically, this picture here helped me great things to think about, okay, guys, what does the program backlog look like? So now across all the 4 teams, they're doing the team backlogs, they're doing the attributes. What are the generic across all teams on a solutions perspective, the release train perspective, solution here on the top right, features that need to be done. So in there went all the operational parts. And then the hardest part came. So then I went out and I looked for who is a system architect in this team. So I looked for a person who would say, yep, it's me, hello. I can this role. And I couldn't find that person. Nobody was willing to step up and say, I am taking charge of the system. Of course, there was team number 1, which was the oldest team, who had de facto put in the minimum requirement parts of the architecture runway, which was basically the templating of the attribute transformations. But the political setup of the project and the infighting between 2 different Indian vendors in there was such that nobody felt empowered. And the customer was also not willing to empower someone to step into this role. This was my biggest challenge. I couldn't find an owner and system architect. So I ended up doing a lot of the stuff myself, right, because it needed to be done. But you need a good technical guy to understand it, because this solution was spreading from the mainframe over an Oracle grid computing environment, right, into a Hadoop platform, right? So all these technologies needed to be integrated, and nobody stepped forward, and that was a month-long process. And when I eventually got off the project, it still hadn't been decided. The customer said, "Yep, we're about to hire that person," right? But it wasn't decided. So what you see basically here is a safe idea implementation, bottom to top, that is still looking for the top parts, right? And what this picture helped me to say, okay, look, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing. Never mind continuous deployment. They're very far away from that. They think actually that regulatory requirements prevents a bank from doing the continuous delivery pipeline, right? So this helped here, but it was extremely difficult to put these things into place in a project that was already totally wrongly set up. So my recommendation basically is really understand these pictures and put these things into place, and don't ignore the things on the right, the vision. They didn't have a vision about what this final operational solution would look like. They didn't have someone to take responsibility. So my recommendation to everybody in the call is please look at all those elements and really make sure that you make a conscious, understand what it is, make a conscious decision whether it is needed, and you will probably find that you need it.
So what I hear there, and I think the key for me there is that the way they chose to implement, and this is something you see, is people think again about SAFe as being IT, right? So therefore, we'll take our agile teams, we'll start putting our agile teams together, and then we'll start filling some roles for product owner, we'll start filling some roles for product management. We start trying to build up from the bottom. The problem with that is they're missing the crucial piece, which is the organizing around value. Right? So it's no coincidence that when you look in the roadmap, that after the education, the first thing we do is teach them to organize around value, because it is the core construct that everything else is going to be built around. When you get to creating the implementation plan, you know that you're working for some solution that's supporting your operational value stream, and now you're going to start to fill out roles. And that just means that if I'm not getting to put a name in the system architect or system engineer area, then that leaves me to question, well, what's that going to do to my implementation? And so it's a great guided path, and there are checklists along the way that help you understand, well, where am I really at in terms of my being able to implement? So as I said, a lot of people start here. I've got four or five teams. Let me just pull them together. We'll call them an agile release train, and away we go. And they've missed, a lot of the fundamental things that are going to be necessary to make that successful.
Very important.
I wanted to ask you, Thomas, you talked about flight levels. Maybe I missed it. Are you able to give us like a quick comparison? Because you mentioned it between your opinion, Scaled Agile and flight levels, because I'm curious from my own understanding.
Yeah, they are on the very extreme. On the very extreme. I mean, SAFe is extremely prescriptive, very clear what needs to be done, very, our discussion, inflexible. You really, 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 really need to understand, and then really need to, you really should do it the way it's prescribed, as Gerald was saying. And if you are making, I know that the very first discussion at the very first emotional moment in our SPC class was when someone said, I want to learn in the class how to adapt SAFe. And then John and Gerald went red alert, right? And funnily enough, if I look in the German marketplace and people looking for SAFe SPCs, more often than not, the statement is in there, how to adopt the SAFe framework. Yet I learned there's a reason why there's everything there. And you need to make an educated, well-educated decision about if you ever wanted to change anything, right? So extremely clear what needs to be done in order to build the largest complex solutions on the SAFe side. The flight levels is on the other extreme. It is sort of saying, if you don't want to do a really reorganization, put in a structure like this with all the clear roles, with responsibilities, hundreds of people working together, huge investments, because you're afraid that doing Agile is you're not ready yet for this, right? So the flight level part, and I'll send a link later, is really extremely light touch. And it says, okay, at least try to make sure that there's a learning cycle on each of the levels, team, release train in our case, and portfolio. So I think the levels match, right? Portfolio is matching strategy with execution. Team is making sure we have feedback cycles in, and I said the difficult part, the art is the middle part. The art is the middle part. Getting the art right is probably the most important one and the most difficult one. And flight levels are saying the same thing, right? Organizations, because they are probably built in a terroristic way, top down, where the assumption is in that the organization knows what everybody is doing, and by setting them up in such a way, coordination is given, right? Because they have all their scorecards, they have their incentives, etc. But reality is that's rarely the case. But as you move to a team-based approach, new structures, the coordination between the team, no team is an island, right? That's what they say in flight levels. So you need to make an effort to making sure that all teams are working together in a sense, in a different way. For example, different ways like the value chain you showed, Gerald, earlier, where you would have whatever different carrots connecting with each other to build out the value chain. And as we know, in order for an organization to be business agile, each carrot needs to be a fast and not a blocker, right? So assuming that different teams are working after each other, the coordination with the teams is extremely important to ensure that the entire value chain happens, right? And they're simply saying, guys, you need to talk, you need to make sure that you are on a weekly basis doing stand-ups and identifying whether there are any bottlenecks on the art/value stream level that prevents you from being successful, right? So to the point that I say, so what, right? But we all know at the end also SAFe with its clarity is about ensuring, like you say in the value of transparency, right? Making clear what everybody is doing, what everybody's responsibility is, so all the pieces fit together, so the business value is achieved, right? So I don't see them as a conflict at all. And once you do SAFe, I would personally say, that was really the reason for my question, I would say, look, if you do SAFe well, flight levels is not on topic anymore, because SAFe achieves the same objectives built in. That would be my current position in comparing flight levels. But if an organization doesn't have SAFe and wants to get started and really understands what's the minimum required in order to become a little bit more agile, there seem to be people in the German marketplace who think that flight levels is the thing, right?
All right, interesting. I know from the US, and obviously I'm spending a long time in Singapore, that Europe has always had quite a few different frameworks available there that I hadn't seen before. So that's interesting.
I think one of the things that I would just put on top of that, Tom, you use the words, and we hear this all the time, SAFe is prescriptive. And the reality is it's not prescriptive. A lot of people mistake guidance for prescription, right? So remember, we don't tell you must do any of this, right? Remember, what's SAFe, the framework is a set of integrated patterns that are known to work. If you look at the history of SAFe, if I bring up this, if you look at the history of SAFe, it started back in 2011. So the things that were going on in the marketplace prior to 2011 were people implementing lots of different successful patterns. And what Dean really did was he and Drew and Colin really started to pull together, well, how do we start pulling this together into a single source of guidance? And that's really what began. Dean had a book, and there were lots of other books that he referenced. And so, one of his books was in one of the main references. His work at Nokia and other things were what really began to generate. And we went from 1.0 to where we're at today with SAFe 5, and it'll continue to grow. But the framework, being a set of integrated patterns, just simply says you don't have to do these. But if you choose to go without one, or you choose to add something in, understand the consequences or the outcomes of what that does. So, for example, if I don't like PI planning, great, don't do it. But if you don't do PI planning, understand what that's going to do to your implementation. Remember, the goal is business agility. The goal is better outcomes. All the things in the framework are just tools that are helping you get to that point. So if you choose to add something in or take something out, have that, but understand what that does to the outcome.
Interesting.
Yeah, people love to label SAFe as prescriptive, heavy. There's a whole bunch of ranges, but it's like there's nowhere in the framework where we say you must. You know?
Okay, fair enough. No, I guess we're coming a long way. And I mean, if you look at the maturity of agile methods in the marketplace, right? I think the most agile organizations, right? Whatever, Spotify, ING, etc., they're all saying, look, we look at the entire tool set and the methodology that are out there, and we decide what to do. And that is really what Agile is about. Agile is about being flexible on your approach in order to maximize the outcome, right? So at the end, every strict framework, in order to continue serving high mature agile organizations, need to be flexible, right? But ultimately, the people make the decisions. The team, an organization makes the decisions. What are we using there or not? The prescriptiveness is important for the beginners, right? If you don't know better because you don't have the experience, then go by the book first, learn from there, and then as you mature, make your decisions. And again, as SAFe is adding more and more elements to it, I assume there are certain things that necessarily have to be optional. I mean, for example, in the case of my client, forget about DevOps, right? I mean, they're not there, right? But at the end, that doesn't break the self value, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Gerald, there's also going to ask, we're kind of, I've been doing a lot of virtual delivery type stuff for, it's been a couple of years now. I'll dare to say we're getting kind of post-COVID here. What are the differences you're seeing in terms of deliveries, release trains, anything, that's of relevance people should be thinking about?
What specifically are you looking for? So
of course we used to back in the old days do a lot of, big in-person, big room planning, big, everybody meeting together, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, most stuff I'm assuming now for most implementations has gone virtual or mostly virtual. Do you see that changing again in the near future? Do you think it's going to stay that way? And, any other thoughts?
No, it's definitely changing. We are starting to see more organizations now beginning to move back to a lot of in-person. So, in-person PI planning and in-person training, but we are also seeing a lot of hybrid. So now where we're going, we've been living in this fully virtual world, and people have gotten good at it. A lot of organizations have got quite good at running remote PI planning or remote trainings. But I think there's just people begin to understand that when you want people to collaborate to come up with outcomes, people do best when they're actually with each other and able to collaborate, right? There's just a part of being human that says, I want to talk to another human being face to face. And, as much as looking at someone on a computer screen, someone could say, well, it's face to face. It's really not, right? Think about having a beer with somebody over a computer screen. Does that feel satisfying as opposed to me sitting down the pub with you having a beer, which, John, you're buying? But, if someone's going to do that, it's much more enjoyable. So I think people are beginning to realize there are advantages, and people want these advantages, like I don't have to commute, I don't have to do these things. But there are big disadvantages too to this remote world, which is a lack of human connection. And so some of those things are starting to come into play. You do see people going, I don't want to go back to the office. And while that's true, what they really want is, I want flexibility. I want to come into the office when I want, or I want to, and I want to be able to have flexible. But PI planning, in some instances still works best when people are face-to-face, because it's not just about the outcome. It's also about building the relationships and about the teams and the teams of teams. And I think that becomes important depending on where you are culturally. For some individuals, they don't care, but a lot of individuals. So we are seeing it switch back more and more. So it will be interesting as I think we get through 2022 into 2023 to see where a lot of this goes. The economics of training online, you know, are kind of like people like, yeah, it seems much more economical. It does, but there's also, you know, certain losses to that when you're not teaching in a room.
That is true. Cool. Okay. Other questions from the group, comments, thoughts, anything on your mind, anything you didn't understand? Feel free to jump in with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a question, but slightly, I think it's of a different part. Yeah, Gerald, see, as a Scrum Master, what does my RT expect from me as a Scrum Master?
They expect a payment every week of about $100. No, so I think the thing to understand for your teams is to get together on a regular basis with your release training. You know, I would say to you, create a community of practice around Scrum Mastering and release training engineer, right? That kind of servant leadership community of practice. So you guys get together on a regular basis. And you can talk about mindset, talk about practices and things that people are experiencing. What's really expected from a release train engineer is the Scrum Master does the role that they're intended to do, help keep the team on track, help them to avoid the impediments, make sure that they're not, overloading themselves. I would tell you, even with my own organization, far too often, I see Scrum Masters ignore the fact that people overload themselves. In other words, they're overloaded when they come out of team planning and they take on more stuff during the iterations. And so no one's being honest. So we want to empower the team. The Scrum Master can't watch everything. The job of the Scrum Master is to empower those individuals to say something. It's okay to say something. My boss hears from me all the time. I'm overloaded. I can't take on this webinar you want. And he's like, oh, okay, because they have to understand. So I think that's what a good release train engineer needs to know, that not only are you looking at a team, but you're also collaborating with other Scrum Masters, and you're sharing ideas, that you're sharing, issues and challenges. Of course, you should have a Scrum of Scrums in place. So if you don't have a Scrum of Scrums where you guys formally get together to have those conversations, you definitely want to get that set. Your release training engineer should be setting that up so you guys have a formal discussion, but an informal learning environment would be a community of practice around servant leadership.
Okay. Thank
you. After you've all been running the train for a while, notwithstanding some of the challenges you have, you can also think about doing the advanced Scrum Master course. And there's also the release train engineer course that, for budding release train engineers, you might want to think about going to that, or running it internally if one of your SPCs can.
Okay, sure.
All right. Well, we have probably, I'd say, maybe 5 or 10 more minutes before we start to close it out. Any other questions or comments, or anything that was on your mind you didn't understand? Anything? Gerald is a wealth of knowledge. He's one of the most experienced SPCTs that we have out there. So take advantage of the chance to ask him.
Don't be afraid to. If you guys want to hear future topics, send John topics. If you think you want, John can talk to me or talk to other people in the area, and we can craft maybe, more directive meetups in the future. So don't be afraid to throw up a topic and say, hey, I want to learn more about this.
Along those lines, I mean, John, Gerald, do you think everybody has your contacts, or how would you like that to be communicated? I mean, you want to share your email addresses, or
you want to put that in the chat, Gerald?
Yeah.
I think your LinkedIn, or what's your
what I'll do is just look me up on LinkedIn. I don't have my LinkedIn. I have to go sign in to get it. But I would say if you just look up Gerald Cadden on LinkedIn, and you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I tend not to use my work email unless it's going to be, because what happens is I just get bombarded.
Yep.
And it becomes a bit difficult. But with LinkedIn, I can have a bit of a different conversation, and then maybe I can use my personal email, my work email as well.
Okay, and I'll put my contact in there as well, so you can reach out. You can also reach out through the Meetup group as well, and you'll see you can contact on there also. So I'm putting mine in there as well. And let me see if I can get the LinkedIn contacts on there for Gerald and myself also.
Yeah, I have to go log in to find that because I don't keep it open typically.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think because I'm recording, I can't switch screens. So, but let me see if I can add yours in there. Oh, thanks.
I can go get it.
Got it. Okay, good. Okay, so here it is. I'll type that in. So it's going to be linkedin.com and Gerald Cadden. Okay, so you can reach Gerald there. Hopefully that will work correctly. And then also you can reach me as well. Grab mine. Okay, so if you have, like Gerald said, different topics, things you want to discuss coming up, that you think we should get into, just go ahead and share that. And we'll be happy to make it for an upcoming session and to have that discussion with you guys. And please invite other people to join as well. I know we have a lot of people. It's always good to have active people when they come in to the actual meetups as well.
Good job. Yeah.
Share my profile. Message. Time here. Any other questions while I'm sharing this? Any other final points anybody would like to talk about? Any last kind of wrap up questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Where do we see a safe, from 5 to 10 years down the line?
Oh gosh, well, 5 to 10 years. So, I mean, with the framework and with the organization, we constantly believe in evolving the framework, right? So we are constantly learning from implementations and things that are going on, and so you'll see the framework evolving. There will be a version 6 of the framework coming. Right. So again, you begin to get insight to where some of these things are when you look at the new topics and new information that's coming out. So in the versions to come, near versions to come, you'll see a greater emphasis around artificial intelligence, big data, data ops, big data, et cetera. You'll see a lot more discussion because a lot of the organizations out there that have been implementing SAFe are now also faced with this world of artificial intelligence, data operations, big data, cloud. All of these things are starting to come together. And if they're implementing SAFe, they need to begin to understand, well, how does SAFe provide guidance for us on how to deal with that inside an agile release train? And so you'll see those articles that are there at the beginning of that discussion for us. And so they're early out, but you will see a lot more of that as we start to come. We evolve. The framework, you'll see the picture change a little bit at some point. It always does. We try to take feedback from people and knowledge that we learn, and we continue to evolve it. In 5 to 10 years, mostly probably me with a lot less hair and a bigger belly. But I'm really not quite sure, where will we still be around? Yeah, we think so. We do believe that most organizations are trying to change, and more are coming on board. If you go back and look at some of the way the company has changed, right? So John, you might have noticed this, that we've gone from talking about ourselves as a framework company, and we've started to talk about ourselves as a company that helps organizations change. So the framework isn't front and center anymore. Right, we've expanded to a knowledge and an education world where we help organizations to change. The framework is one part of this, and so that's what becomes more important. I wish I could find the I'm just looking to see if I can find the article where we did that, but it's if I look at Scaled Agile itself, it doesn't have it in here. So about it might be here. So there's Dean. So if you look at our mission, if you look at our mission statements and our vision, if you go in and take a look at these, you start to see, where the framework came from, but you will start to notice that the organization itself is changing. We used to be very focused on the framework and training, but we've begun to realize that there's a greater depth of connection we can have with organizations rather than just giving you training material and a framework, right? And so we become a strategic partner. Scaled Agile and our partners become strategic assets for organizations to help them on that change journey.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So more the helping people to change, Gerald, versus the framework focus, yeah?
Yeah, so the framework is just part of the journey for people, right? Adopting the framework again for changing the outcomes. But there's a diagram. I wish I knew where it was, but I'm like really struggling to find it. Probably up here somewhere, but it's probably in here somewhere. But I think the thing to look at is, you can probably get access to some of the videos and things like that up in the community. But last summit we did, our online summit, Inbar got up and did a basically a repositioning of the company. And so it's a pretty interesting change. And so I think we evolved as a result of the pandemic, and we had to accelerate that a lot. And so we're changing the nature of what Scaled Agile actually is. So Scaled Agile is not seen as just, hey, a framework and a training organization, right? Where we want to be more than that.
Yep. Okay, got it. Good.
I also find that basically it's most development organizations are offshoring anyway. So I don't think we're moving in a world where having everybody physically in one place is still a reality. So I think it's a very natural development.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think the world is going to continue to change and evolve with what we've seen, right? So again, I'm just trying to come down to, when you look at the company itself, there's a diagram that kind of talks to the whole thing, but it's not usually a question I get. I don't usually know where it is. But I'll look at that. But if you go to scaledagile.com, not the framework site, but the company site, that can help you understand a lot more about, what we do as an organization. Okay, I'll leave it at that because I'm not quite sure where to go to find that piece of information.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions as we wrap it up?
Well, nothing from my side, John. I'm done.
Okay, great. Good. All right, great. Well, guys, really good session, even in spite of the attempted hacker.
Yeah.
And if I were to give anybody a tip here, I would say don't ever put your Zoom link out on social media communications, because I put it on Twitter. I'm guessing they might have grabbed it from there. You probably want to just keep that hidden unless somebody joined the meeting. But anyway, great session anyway. Thanks, Gerald, and thanks everybody for joining and going on through that. So we'll be looking for our next one next month. Give us topics, reach out, let us know what you want to learn about, what you're interested in. Completely discussion forum, community, for us to be able to learn and apply Scaled Agile and digital transformation. And look forward to talking to you guys next month. Okay.
So
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see you again, Thomas.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.